Oh, put your hand up.
Yeah.
So, Peter, are you happy with where we stand on the temporary signs? Weren't we talking about changing the process by which they get permission?
Yeah, and I think, we talked about getting a gauge of, the business owner. And I haven't done that so far.
Well, there were two issues, whether to continue to allow it to be done online or to have the person come in, right?
We have the ability to now charge at some point. We were going to probably launch that sometime in July. So they would now have a cost associated with those temporary signs.
And wasn't there an issue of how long they can have the temporary sign?
Yeah, right now, the way it's written on the registration is like they can have the 90 days.
Right.
And then they just re-up for the 90 days, so.
So when you get your procedural change that makes it possible to do what you're talking, do you want to then address the issue?
Sure. We do that one.
Leon?
How are you?
Hello, Leon.
Hello.
We're looking at the draft minutes, which I've looked at, if you want to look at.
These them right here?
Yeah, oh, yeah. there you go.
Do we know whether the select board liked the suggestion of deleting that one phrase in the?
No, it's in Scott's hands. He's gonna get it to the select board the next opportunity.
Did you hear that? You weren't here, Leon, we were talking about where it said it should be X number of dollars and it should be a decision by the select board, and we decided to take out the X number of dollars. So it has the flexibility of.
We should, if we're offered money, we should take it because we might need it.
Right. And we're still not finished in terms of looking at the 1,500 square foot thing, right?
I have a little map for two sections of town-owned parking. So it's kind of crude, but it gets the point of how many properties might be involved.
Oh,
So that's the 1,000 feet.
Yeah, that's
From a,
what's kind of as the crow flies.
street parking.
Yeah.
From the two municipal lots.
Who did this?
Peter.
Wow.
those are the
That
ones that
includes
are
residential
exempt.
and commercial.
Beg pardon?
Those are the ones that are exempt.
Those would
Trying to
have
remember
no
what the
requirements
issue
for the parking.
Got it. No parking requirements.
This area,
Yeah.
okay.
It's under
The
1,500.
facing the Depot Street Historic District, is right?
Mm.
That's correct.
1,500 feet from a municipal lot.
Right.
No,
1,000.
1,000
1,000
feet.
feet from municipal.
But if it's,
It's 1,500 square feet property.
yes,
Do you
yes.
have any more of these?
I can make copies and circulate them. What I could do is
The radio station is right here.
email them out tomorrow.
Albuquerque.
Okay.
Yeah.
See how-
It would be nice.
She's right there. Firefly is right there. The whole area is
Going in.
so dense and it's Depot Street.
And I mean, it's
They
pretty
have no
crude.
parking requirements.
We could further refine it.
It's-
I believe.
We do have a parking lot right there, that green.
Yep, across from Alducci.
Mhm.
That's
No, that
That's
was
the,
a
that's the
town
town lot. It's one of our few town lots.
So it's a, you know,
Like a million times I didn't.
first start.
It's free, free parking. That's
Okay,
the
That's the
reason.
Alducci's lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know exactly where that is.
It was put in because that area.
The customary home occupation.
There's no space.
What's the status of the Christine Spencer's appeal, or is that something?
It's still, I can't talk about still. I think it's being decided right now, or it's being
Findings are being written now.
finalized.
Okay, so we shouldn't get into it.
I mean, we can still talk about, you know, strategically, is this effective? Do we want to look into it closer? I don't know. It's,
I weighed in on that online.
beg pardon?
It's one of the, I never weigh in online, but I weighed in on that. Really echoey in here tonight.
Yeah, the wood
New insulation.
insulation.
Is that what it is? It's really bad. But I weighed in online about that and I don't usually do that because the forums are kind of, crazy. But my view of it is if we have it's a historic district and we have things in place for the historic district to protect the buildings there. And so that building should not be allowed to be torn down under any circumstances.
So you, which was, you're talking about the,
Snowden development, the Firefly building,
right, it's not in the historic district.
that's the Depot Street Historic District.
If you look at the map, it would show it to you. It is not.
You looked at that plan?
I've seen the plan, but I know that that building is irreplaceable if it comes down.
The Firefly building,
Yes, and it's a slate roof building. It's probably been there for 200 years.
but there's nothing special about it.
Nothing special about any of the buildings in town, but all together, they create, as a whole, they create a look about the town. If we get rid of all the non-special buildings, this town becomes like any other town in America, and it loses what the tourists come here for. There's a certain New England charm we have, and that building is part of that charm. I know, but it is. That whole area, all those houses in that row when you come in. I know Miles isn't much to look at, but the other side of the road, those old houses, they are interesting.
I totally agree that the others, all the rest of the buildings on that side of the road are pretty attractive.
And
That whole parcel where Firefly is and the old gas station and the building behind the gas station, it's just,
the building behind the gas station is awful. The gas station itself, I said this online, has a certain amount of charm that gas stations don't usually have. Gas stations nowadays, they don't have one or two pumps out front. They have 8 pumps and they're big sprawling parking lots. That little hill of a gas station, that harkens back to the 1930s style gas station where it was just 2 little pumps out front and you pull in and small building guy comes out. And that itself makes it historic. I mean, I know it doesn't look like much, but I know the parking, the garage behind it, I agree, it's terrible. It does not have any significance to anything, but the gas station is charming and Firefly itself is a nice building. Now, it needs some repairs, but it's a nice building.
but nobody can make money in that gas station.
That's because
It's too small.
it's the way that the structure is set up for that business is it was a company in New Jersey that owned the pumps and they rented out the interior of the space to someone to come in and do the interior. Well, the problem was if you're not doing the gas and the interior, you're not really going to make any money together. So by trying to separate the business into 2 separate entities, it wasn't working out. It was hard for anybody to come in and put a bunch of stuff inside and have enough people stop there to make money that way.
Especially when you got a variety store across the street.
Right. The variety store is what was really,
I saw the plans for the oil change thing and I was impressed.
I don't want to lose that building.
But if it was a building that Tilting is in, I can understand your concern of the building that next one down the road, understand your concern. Those are nice buildings. But this thing,
So Vermont is second only to California per capita for electric car adoption. As far as the people who are buying electric cars. In 20 years, and I know this sounds crazy, but in 20 years, there won't be any gas passenger cars on the road pretty much. It will mainly be electric passenger cars. A Jiffy Lube, which sounds like a great thing for the next 10 years, it's not going to work out in 20 years. It's not going to be viable. It's going to be a ghost shell of a building. And in the meantime, we've lost a historic building to make way for something that will only be viable for, less than 20 years. Something that's been there for 200 years will be gone. To make, a temporary something that's going to be phased out very soon. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but they're projecting gas cars to go away. And so oil change is not going to be a long-term business for that area. No matter how good the plans look, right? It's just doesn't make sense.
Who makes the ultimate decision on this?
Development Review Board.
Leon, under your right elbow is that,
This is the historic district, so it leaves off Firefly Building, it looks like. Everything along the main corridor there coming in, none of that's the historic district.
that's how it currently is in the historic.
I think having that Depot Street Historic District sign right next to Firefly is what makes you think that's part of it, you know.
In talking to Bill Badger, he said, you know, the state of Vermont and their infinite wisdom, blah, 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 they put this together, that was their responsibility. And I think he's looking to get more people involved with the historic district and reassign that.
Right, we did a walk around a few years ago with Janet and everybody who was on the planning commission at the time, and we walked around in the downtown historic district here. And we reevaluated a few buildings and we added a few buildings to the district that were left off. And it may be that we need to do that in this area as well. Just to, like I said, once we lose them, they're gone forever. And
Yeah, but that's not a significant building, and if you don't allow the property owner to do something with that existing business on it, it's never gonna succeed as a gas station or a convenience store or a combination of the
the
two.
restaurant that's there is been there, it's been there for a long time, it is. making money.
Firefly's been there under different names for a long time, I'm talking about the other part of it.
But if Firefly's gone, Firefly's gone. And
Yeah.
that we have a business that's a viable business that adds to the town that won't be there anymore.
But one of the thinking there is that there are a number of buildings going up out of town that are available for a restaurant, and maybe it's better, but
As,
there's nothing special about that building, and on the top of that, the property owner is probably gonna say, not that it's our decision, by the way, that they can't make money in that business.
as someone who does design, I can see the gas station going away. I can see the building behind it going away. But that can, Firefly, and the loss of that is a tougher thing for me to swallow, because you can redesign that parking lot around Firefly. Keep Fireflies. There are ways to do that.
Again, not our business, but I don't know whether the property owner can get enough rental income from just one business, Firefly, in that large parcel. It's a bigger parcel than
Well,
some people probably know.
I agree. He could still put something in that part, but Firefly does not have to go away in order to make that work.
The plans that have been shown, one of the things that's very advantageous to me is that it would allow you to widen the bottom of Hilldale, I mean, Hills, whatever it is. Which it's too narrow a road there, and it's a really tough intersection.
Oh, Highland.
Highland, pardon me. And the setback of Firefly is right on, too close to the road, and therefore the road historically remained very narrow.
So I will say, as planning, yes, something that we would look at as planning, if we feel like that's a dangerous intersection, we can make that a right turn only at the stop sign. And that way, anybody coming down there to that stop sign has to turn right. They can't turn left into traffic because of visibility. So we can change that if we feel it's unsafe. But I mean, I don't know if any accidents have happened there. Do you know of any, Peter?
I don't know of any, but that wasn't a question I've asked anyone.
Right.
But I do know that, taking up with Jeff Williams, who said that the radius of that turn, even to the right, is very shallow and
It's tough for big.
that needs to be improved. It's out of our hands. It's in the DRBs.
Well, we can make recommendations but we can't,
You show up to the meeting and
also make rules, and the DRB wouldn't follow those rules, but we have to have a rule to change first.
Okay, so back to the minutes. In future discussions, we need to talk about at some point, the temporary signs, the parking issue, the 1,500 square foot parking issue, the parking signage, and customary home occupation. So those are all unfinished business issues. And then the updating the town plan is something we're going to talk about today and hopefully get started on. But other than that, does anybody want to make a motion to accept the minutes as they're shown?
I move that we accept the minutes from May 13th.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, 0. All righty. So do you want to wait on the temporary signs off of our agenda, Peter? And we're going to get right through this agenda really fast because we're procrastinating. I'm really good at procrastinating, by the way. I don't know whether there's anything in number 3 that we need to get into now, but I open it to discussion. Is there a reason that you're here? Which part of it? Do you want to comment about a portion of it or all of it?
Well, if you're where you are first, or what you keep proposing or.
The pay for parking issue, we're looking for more input on the 1,500 square foot. We just got a document that, matter of fact, you can have one if you'd like, that talks about how what effect that would have. And we haven't looked at it, Bill, so I'm not sure we can answer intelligently. There's a lot to it there, though. There are other parts that he's gonna want to see.
This one.
Oh,
yeah,
this
part.
is-
Yeah, that's just the zone for the historic district. So this is, these are the parcel names, those names who own the parcels in that district.
And what are you proposing?
Nothing yet. This was just given it, I would give all of that to Bill. We can get more. It details where the 1,500 square foot parking issue would have an impact. And that's why Peter went to the effort of detailing where the parcels are, potentially. We just got it, Bill, so don't ask a lot of questions about it right now because we haven't looked at it in detail.
So what do you mean when you're talking about the 1,500 square foot?
In the ordinance, if you have a 1,500 foot building that's within, that has
I get mine.
parking, street frontage
Right here.
parking, and it's within 1,000 feet of municipal lot, you don't have any parking requirements.
That's the current ordinance or proposed?
Current
Current.
ordinance.
And the municipal lot there,
Used to other people also.
and Bill, the municipal lot there is the one in front of Al Ducci's, and it's the one that has the green border.
Yeah.
There's that plus the new one.
Okay. Oh, so it's both those areas.
And then it's
That's why there's two
There-
maps. So
parcels, that details where parcels are that are affected by this. And it was kind of, I think some people weren't aware of it.
Of the 1,500? I'm not.
Me too. So I think the thing to do is to look at that information and then be able to determine how we want to deal with it before we.
No, I'm not clear on it. Is it 1,500 feet, larger than 1,500 feet exempt or smaller is exempt? Okay.
1,500 or less.
So that benefits small businesses.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Good news.
Is that total square footage of a building or footprint?
That I don't know.
Square footage.
the footage.
So first, second floor.
Yeah.
And how many buildings? Are these all buildings that?
Those buildings are identified as just within 1,000 feet of those parking areas.
That's,
We don't know whether or not the square footage.
That's right, we haven't gone. So this is really preliminary, we're just kind of looking at our exposure.
I think the next step, Bill, would be to look at these properties and see which ones are under 1,500 square feet. And just pull those out of the data so we get a list of both the total number of properties that fall under that exemption and the total number of properties that don't. There's also a mix here of residential and commercial, which we think we ought to keep because Elias points out, those residential properties may become commercial properties at some time in the future. So it's just maybe good to keep them in for now.
Mm.
But we can also separate them out.
Well, they can also become residential in the future too.
Right.
Yeah, they can do either.
They can swap stuff.
If you think about the area.
I think it's okay to keep both in for that purpose.
Many of them previously were businesses on the ground floor with houses above. That's,
So as much as it was unaware to some people, it doesn't mean it's not a good thing.
Right.
I mean, so if it's already there, why are we, if it seems like it's working, do we need to really do anything to it or touch it?
I'm not of the opinion that we have to change it, but I want to understand it first.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't have initial, well, I should say my initial reaction was, whoa, that sounds a little, I'm not sure I like the sound of that. But then again, when you think about it, it may be advantageous.
Yes.
Any other issues that you want to talk about on number 3 at this point?
Well, it's in there.
Bill, we're going to move on from number 3 on the agenda but if you have some other comments about parking at this time, you got.
Well, my, general. Sorry, I was waiting for. Concern and comment is that any activity that increases the demand for parking, either by increasing the size of the building or changing the use of the building, that property needs to provide its own parking. Because existing facilities are being have provided parking, are being taxed on their own, or being denied the use of that parking for their businesses because of encroaching parking by businesses who aren't providing.
Well, I would also say that, are we talking about, still talking about the same district or a different district? Are we talking about this
Let's
district?
talk about anything in the business district.
Okay.
Any of the business district.
Well, I will say that on Elm Street, it's a wider street and it does have on-street parking, so that does help out with that area. It's almost like a parking lot.
Yeah, I'm not down in that area so much.
Yeah. But if we're talking about all of town, I can know
I'm saying as a general principle.
what you're saying.
I think it's interesting that the actions that have been taken, 3 actions that have been taken that have recently affected the parking situation downtown. One is where Stan Weiner changed, put up a $3 parking fee. All of a sudden, there's great availability in that space. And then Pete Keelan put up the signs talking about towing if you're not a customer. That changed the picture in front of Walgreens building. And then the 2-hour parking behind the Walgreens building has changed that situation too. So I think it's interesting.
I'd like to comment on all those. I thought back when we issued permits, that you provided a number of parking spaces, but it was also understood or even written plan that it was unrestricted parking. You couldn't restrict parking just to your own businesses. That's a complete change of use. I mean, a complete change of philosophy of how we've operated in the past. When I was on the planning commission, I don't want to tell you how far back that was, but, and my involvement in getting parking for any of my businesses, why I'm creating the parking to meet my needs according to the zoning. At the same time, it was understood that it was like shared use parking. And that's why we have the shared use parking tables in the zoning that,
And we've gone over those extensively in the past in order to figure out times and when things would work out best for
Yeah.
everybody.
Right.
But by throwing the wrench in the works kind of the way that people are doing right now, it kind of upsets that balance.
so I guess the question is, should anybody be allowed to restrict their parking legal, from the point of view of charging for parking and or anybody, if you're not my business, you get towed away from here?
And Peter, that's a question for you.
Because the whole idea is walk, park and walk. So you parked in Charlie's parking lot, and I just happened the other day, and I asked the people, and I says, well, we're going over to the bookstore and then we're coming back to Charlie's for lunch. You know, that's the whole idea, is that you don't keep moving your car from business to business when you're going to business. It doesn't make sense. It's a traffic issue. If I'm restricting my parking for only my customers and they want to go somewhere else, that disturbs or eliminates the whole concept of park and walk.
Walk.
And it,
That was what we were building our whole downtown and our whole parking concept on.
isn't it the case that there used to be signs all over town that
Yes,
park and?
back in, oh God, it's got to be in the records. Yeah, we had signs made for it.
So that's the question I have for Peter. Peter, if we have park and walk signs, we must have had an ordinance around that.
That's what I'm looking for. I don't know that I have seen it. If you're familiar with it, please.
I'm not familiar with it or my time.
So my point about the three different scenarios that have impacted the parking in town, I think it's interesting because it means that these cars are going somewhere. And I don't know where, but we've got to find out more information. There are two things I'd like to see is, I'd like to see Stan not do the $3 thing, but do a 2-hour parking limit, maybe, and maybe Pete Keelan is the same thing. And then there got to be other places in town, like behind Gap. That's a large parcel that has park and walk. And so there are two signs that have to be made, in my opinion, by the Manchester and get permission from the owners, property owners, to put them on their lots.
And let me go back to the town parking lot too. I think some of the 2-hour parking signs, I wanted to go over the lot today and I didn't get a chance to do that. I don't think they apply to the whole lot, or they shouldn't. I think they put some up at the beginning when you come in off of School Street, because school employees were parking there. And when we redid that lot and the school redid their lot, the whole idea was that the school employees parked on the school lot. And I drove through it 2 weeks ago during the school day, and there was 17, 18 parking spaces available in the school lot at
A lot next,
11 o'clock in the morning.
lot next to the telephone company,
Pardon?
lot next to the telephone company.
Well, yeah, if you want to say that, but it's by the gym, you know,
A lot back where the buses are parked.
yeah.
And both of those should be for the exclusive use of the school, in my opinion. But the interesting thing I found is that when you put up these 2-hour signs on the lot, the new lot, all of a sudden, instead of having 2 vacant parking spaces out of, what are there, 30 parking spaces there? All of a sudden, they're like 12 or 14 available spaces. That's great. And theoretically, in my opinion, the parking lot next to the telephone company should be full during the day, and it should be employees of the school. And the parking lot back where the buses are should be pretty full, and that's for employees of the school. The parking lot that was just built behind Walgreens is not for employees of the school, in my opinion.
That's correct. Yeah, that was
And
the
so
reason
felt the same way, and that's why he put up a 2-hour parking sign.
that for putting it for some of those spaces. But I had a call from somebody in the bank building who said they can't park at the town lot because it's 2-hour parking. And they want to park there for the better part of the day. They're an employee who works downtown. I said, I don't think that's the case. I think that's only for some of those spots that specifically have the signs.
Park in the strip right across from the hair salon there, between the drive-through for the bank and the hair salon. That strip is not a town lot. That's part of the
And
bank.
the other-
I'm sorry?
Yeah, he's right. There's parking spaces available near Stella's and behind the reuse store.
Right next to the drive-through. There's a bunch of spaces there, and those are available for the bank.
But also,
Park.
some discussion has been made with one large property owner in downtown about allowing cars to park there, and that was a positive response. We've got to go to 2 or 3 others and do the same thing, and I will do that the next couple of weeks to talk to them about making it available for somebody just like a bank employee, if somebody who's there, or a lawyer that's on Main Street that doesn't have a place to park. We have to free up parking on Main Street, and find a place for these all-day parking.
The town parking lot should be the space for those people. There's at least, I counted because I had to deal with Mr. Keelan on, well, they wanted to know something about the property line because it's without going back to the whole reason that let's say joint use parking is taking place because part of Keelan's property is in the town parking lot. At the same part of the town parking lot backs right against the Walgreens building, and that building has no legal access to all that parking unless we have this cooperative agreement. And that's why that whole town parking lot is, let's say, for public use. None of that can be restricted except by the town. Okay,
Well, I do want to say,
except there's 4 parking places directly behind the building now that were just recently added and designated are for employees of Walgreens.
I do want to say that I think that a 2-hour parking sign is somewhat of a mistake because especially for the park and walk scheme, because 2 hours isn't really enough for someone coming into town to park, go to a restaurant, go shopping, walk around all of town. It's just not enough time. 3 hours would be a better time. That would still discourage people from parking there all day.
The main reason for that was to move, and I think I had some discussion with Scott about this, was to get the school employees out of those spaces. There's a number of school employees who worked on that end of the building who found that historically, as always the case, very convenient to park right there instead of parking around the school and walking through the school or around the school to their place of work.
I agree with that, and it would be nice if those signs could be changed to 3-hour parking, and maybe the 2-hour ones could be used somewhere else.
Right.
We'll work on that. Other issues on the parking?
Well, depends where again, anybody who wants to expand their business or change of use that creates more demands on parking needs to provide it in some way, or they just can't do that.
But also the issue of existing businesses that don't have the parking in that downtown core. Hopefully it could be worked out that there's a shared use. For example,
Yeah.
George's Bank, they're done at 5.
So I'm not talking about, if you're an existing business and you have, the permits and then you historically have a commercial business or a retail store or a restaurant, you're good to continue. And I'm not arguing about those. It's just that in a couple of places in town, we have increased the demand on certain lots or the use, and they haven't provided parking. And potentially it's encroaching on others.
Can you talk about specifically what those locations,
Well, up around the roundabout.
all around the roundabout?
Pardon?
I didn't hear you.
Up around the roundabout, the newer buildings that are
Which roundabout, the Shaw's one or the main one?
Shaw's.
Okay. I was thinking of more downtown, but
Again,
I'd argue that that's an issue up there also.
anything downtown specifically. We're potentially gonna have that. Some of the buildings that are less vacant right now, or are vacant or not fully occupied right now, change their use. Potentially, until you get specific proposals.
What you're talking about, and I'm not arguing with you. I agree with the issue.
We're also gonna get the lot back when the new brew pub is done. There's a little lot there, there currently the trailer's in it. We're gonna get those spaces back.
And that's the other reason we developed interconnectivity between parking lots also. Right? To avoid the in and out of the road, in and out of the roads.
Do you like to see Stan's property
Connected to the town.
establish that interconnectivity with us?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know why,
I'm gonna go talk to him about
I
the
always thought.
$3 thing and hopefully try to figure out another way to deal with that. That kind of surprised me when, because that all of a sudden appeared after I talked to him and he never told me about it. And I also believe that back connectivity is really important, and in the places in Depot where we have it, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
It seems like we had that open and connected for a reason, and by
I
doing it without
thought that was a
permit.
permit condition way back.
Permit condition, correct, permit condition.
But because the town parking lot for prior to its existing condition was so impossible to use, it was forcing people to use that Stan's parking area as public parking. For a number of years prior to the rebuild of the parking lot, the town parking lot there was useless most of the year.
Well, for many years, that back access was open.
Mhm.
It wasn't until, what, 2 or 3 years ago that
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, because of,
we'll try to do a better job talking to Stan. But
That should have been permitted. He should have gotten a permit to do that because it was connected for a reason.
can you help us on that? Is that part of the
We
permit?
can look into it. But Bill, you were involved with the building of that, right?
yeah, you're going back at least 20, maybe 30 years.
The
Bill,
parking
remember the
lot?
municipal parking lot got improved just recently. Was there anything in that permit that dealt with the back access connectivity?
So the town parking lot, the improvement of it? No.
So there's nothing in that, that made that, there's nothing that forced it to be closed.
No.
Alrighty?
Hmm.
Other comments?
You remember when the park and ride was really, how long ago was that?
Oh, that's this guy, so.
Well, do you remember, was embarrassing in a public meeting?
You brought it up.
I can get the date. And was it effective?
I'm trying to think, maybe 20 years ago. Yeah, very effective.
People were willing to share their parking lots. Was there an overall agreement that said that you will be sharing your parking lot?
I just think that was implied in every parking permit.
Okay.
We had these nice wooden signs, right? We had
I have mock-ups of them.
yeah, in fact, I think we got a grant to get that all done. But that was the whole concept of when we reduced part of it, reducing Depot Street down to 2 lanes instead of 4 lanes. Remember when it was just strictly 4 lanes without turn lanes? That was all part of the package. traffic calming. You park somewhere, we have shared parking, and you encourage people to walk around and come back to their car.
Well, then at some point, those signs went away.
There must have been a change somewhere that,
I grew
Shift.
up on one, they kind of deteriorated, they were wooden signs and there's something happened to them, they got hit by something and then one by one they disappeared, but when they were put up, they were beautiful, they were attractive, gave a nice message.
Ah,
It's a nice message.
yes.
It adds
It's a nice
to the town.
but wouldn't we have to get agreement,
Yeah.
all the people who own lots?
Who can probably help
participate?
you out with that a lot is if you can chase down Lee Crone.
Lee Crow. I know where to find him.
In
He was-
Burlington now, is he still in Burlington?
Is that-
Is he in Burlington?
I think so, yeah.
He was,
In Waitsfield, maybe?
I think, the author of all this.
But then to your point, Peter, do we have to get agreement?
I think so. I think that if people are perceiving that they own this property, they pay tax on this property, why would I let someone else use that for little or no money?
If it was agreed upon in the permit, as Bill stated,
Yeah.
possibly, then
I mean, I think that,
We have new
Supervision is-
owners for these properties and it's going
Is that a-
back when.
is that a taking? I'm
I'd
gonna
like
take
to-
your parking lot, I'm gonna use it for my cars for across the way. I think I don't know the answer to this.
I would just propose we do a check on the ordinance.
Absolutely.
Because, and I've only read it fully once, but I've read this a couple of times, and I walked away from the park and walk is a municipal lot idea,
Yeah.
and the shared parking is between neighboring businesses.
Correct.
And they're two completely different things. And I think maybe the folklore and the community of Manchester has sort of kind of bled into and evolved into, yeah, it's okay to share parking, right? But, if someone's parking at Charlie's and goes to the bookstore and comes back for lunch, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
If they,
But
if
the
they go
bigger
to.
issue is that if you're a retailer, I think like a retailer, and if I could get a car to pull into my parking lot, even if they're not planning on buying skis, but instead they're going to do something else, I think that's a positive, because then I got a chance to catch their interest with something.
Unless it prevents a customer who wants to buy skis from parking in your parking.
True.
So
Yeah,
I think that's the difference.
I mean,
And I think these two things
Maybe
are.
not the ordinance, but someplace it has to be a cooperative program where we're trying to help each
And
other.
I think the ordinance on the shared parking allowance is between neighboring businesses.
Yes. If
And I think
there's an application comes in and you don't have enough parking, but your neighbors agreed to
Yes.
support that.
Now,
It's
the only
not a
thing-
shared parking, I can go park at Charlie's and then, go off to the Equinox for a weekend.
I feel the only business that should be exempt from that sort of thing would be the medical office, the doctor's office downtown, because if they need that parking for someone who's has an emergency. Otherwise,
All this privacy concerns,
Yeah.
psychiatry, that sort of stuff. I mean, but the way the ordinance is written now is not the way that I believe we're talking about it right this second. And I think that's an issue.
Okay, other issues on the parking now?
I do.
Who else?
Sorry.
Who else? I said, are there other issues on the parking now?
I'll listen to see where you're headed or what you're doing.
One of the things we want to do, Bill, is to take another look at the town plan. It's 100 and, how many pages? 180?
It's 1:30.
180 pages, and we don't think that's correct.
it's a novel.
It's one of the things that people are gonna look at it, put it in the desk drawer, and that's it. And so, I think almost all of us have decided that we'd like to try to figure out how to condense it, make it more workable, et cetera. And maybe the first place to start, in my opinion, is with ordinances, because the ordinances are difficult, onerous, too long, maybe not
Disorganized.
appropriate. This is a perfect example, this parking thing.
It's hard to find certain ordinances because they aren't grouped in the right places. They're all over the place. If you want to find out, I mean, I dare you to try to find it. Try to find how large of a like a shed you can put on your property. I mean, that's tough, like finding that stuff in the ordinances buried.
Especially somebody coming new to town to do a small business, to try to understand the ordinance that might apply to them.
Yeah.
And how many parts of that,
And we should group it into businesses and residential. It should be grouped separately.
What are you saying? We should look at the ordinances before we update the town plan?
I don't know, should we?
Yes.
Let me tell you how I think the system works, and I don't know if it helps what you do. When you say you put the town plan in the drawer, that is true, because if I'm going to redo my property, or I have my, well, take Charlie's or any lots that I've done, I go to the ordinance and tells me what I'm allowed to do. Okay? And the only time I use the town plan is if I'm gonna get into an Act 250 situation. So your ordinance is the kind of the governing document for the town plan. You need the town plan that says, here's our vision and how we want, where we want to be and so on, and lays out the overall parameters. But the ordinance is important because that's your governing document for it. Every application that comes before the RB is measured against the ordinance. And that's why you say it's complicated, but it tells you pretty much in black and white what you can do.
You're not the norm. Let's talk about the new small businessman that comes to town, wants to do something, and he looks at that, first of all, does he know that he's got to study the town plan first to understand what he can and cannot do?
I don't think so,
I
no.
don't think so either. And he certainly doesn't look at that town plan and have it answer the questions that he needs answered. He then has to go there. And it's not right that you've got this town plan of 185 pages that has taken a ton of work. And it doesn't answer the questions because it's too complicated. It's not organized right. The ordinances are here and the town plan's here. The town plan is just, we want to make sure we have a nice plan. That's our town. That's what it says. But how to achieve that and what the rules are that he has to live by are too hard to follow and understand, in my opinion.
I don't think so. I think,
You're not the norm. You've dealt with this for years and years and years.
no, I'm saying anybody, if I want to do something, I can purchase a piece of property, what zone am I in? Am I in a residential, am I mixed commercial, and so on? Stop by the office, what am I allowed to do? It's not that complicated.
Stop by the office. Shouldn't it be done without the office? I mean, theoretically, you could say, why does everybody have to come see him or him to answer their questions?
It's pretty clear in the town plan, in the zoning ordinance, what you can do.
Should be able to. I don't think I could do it.
Are they on the website?
Just,
They're already searchable on the website.
Yeah. What do you mean searchable?
So if you want to search for a specific thing in the ordinance, can you type it in on a search on the website and then it goes right to?
You could hit Control F and search a keyword. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But do we have not everybody knows to do Control F, so we have a specific little search.
We've just talked about a couple of things already tonight. Temporary signs, status of paid for parking, 1,500 square foot parking, required parking. All of these things are addressed in the ordinances, yet we're in limbo on them. Because it's not written well. The ordinance is not written so it can be understood. That's my opinion. I'm not speaking for everybody here, but
I don't follow that at all.
For many years, when Janet would show up here and she would have almost weekly, we'd have a meeting, monthly, we'd have a meeting. She'd come up with a paper and it would have a copy of a page of the ordinance on it. And it would be a section that would be in red. That would be like a change to those sections. And we'd talk about it. The reason we talked about it is because she would find things that would be going against other sections of the other ordinances. So they'd have to be changed in order to not compete against other ordinances. And as she's working in the office during the week, she'd find those things and go, oh, this isn't right. I'll bring this to the planning commission, they can look at it. And we'd look at it and we'd talk about it and then we'd vote to change that part of the ordinance. And that happened for many years. It's how we did things. And sometimes we would simplify the language within that particular ordinance, and sometimes we would make it more complicated. But it was usually it was simplification.
So another example, customary home occupation. Customary home occupation. Not clear at all. And we have two situations right now that Peter's dealing with that are based on the lack of clarity in that is that correct to say?
Well, I mean, it is interpretation, right? So that's, I'm trying to get away from.
Theoretically, an ordinance shouldn't be, it shouldn't be an issue of interpretation. It should be pretty much black and white.
Well, then that maybe the ordinance needs clarification. I don't think it means, if the town plan kind of says, here's where we want to encourage customary home occupation businesses, but they should have no impact on the neighbors and so on and so forth, and not impact traffic in any way and so on. And that's what's should be in the town plan. And then the ordinance puts that down in black and white is that, and they used to be pretty clear what can be a home occupation or what you couldn't. And if it was just the owner and maybe one employee and they only did it during certain hours, it could be allowed. But if it was 2 to 4 or 5 employees and so on, you can't do it in the residential district.
Don't believe the ordinance on customary home occupation is specific to that degree.
I think it is.
The appeal that's being dealt with that we're not supposed to talk about is addressing that. It's, this instance is one that maybe I shouldn't even go into it. There's not that much business. So that's an issue too. But another situation is the person who was already in his home occupation was here and somebody bought a house next to him and didn't like the looks of what this guy's doing. And that should be more specific in terms of the rules.
Okay, well, that's something you tidy up. If there's something that leads to these that are gray areas, then you try to make them black and white.
What I'm talking about is tidying up and eliminating gray areas.
So we would take the ordinance here, we would look at it and go, how do we tidy this up and make it clear? And then we send it back, Peter would send it back to the select.
Airbnb is another typical example. Because back when I was on the planning commission or 20 years ago, Airbnbs were not an issue. They didn't exist. It's a 20-year new business 20 years ago, nationwide. Now we have to adjust our plan and ordinance probably to accommodate them. Where should they be or where they shouldn't be? Are they any different than a bed and breakfast? In my opinion, no. Yeah, they operate a little bit, but they're the same thing, And so you just tweak the definition a little bit, and then they can only exist in certain zones and not in other zones. Just like
It may be an issue in the ordinance that specific new situation or occupation, so to speak, has to change the rules or is forcing to change the rules. I mean, I just talked to the guy who's in charge of it in Waterbury, which includes Stowe. They have a bigger problem than anybody in the state. And
we have a problem.
Stowe is huge compared to this problem here, huge. And the other factor that comes into play is people who own property are more inclined, would rather rent to somebody for 2 or 3 days than for somebody continuously, because there are all sorts of negatives in the continuous rental game. So, but I'm just one person. I'm here of the opinion that maybe we start with the ordinance if we want to readdress this town plans before we do the town plan. I could be wrong, but I'd like to hear from other people.
So then would Michael Allen or the consultant that we hire with the grant, would that go to the ordinances or would that go to how does that work with the RFP?
I think you have to talk to the potential candidate and discuss an RFP, but maybe he would say, don't start with the ordinance. Maybe he'd say, start with the ordinance. I don't know.
So
But-
Bill, we have a grant to, that we just received that we can use, to up.
I think you have to go through the town plan and see if it's meeting today's needs, section by section. Is some things have changed, the whole communications issue.
Exactly what we want to do.
Yeah. And then the ordinance has to be the document that governs the objectives of the town plan. So I would go over the town plan. I don't think it needs a lot of changing myself, but there are areas that definitely need updating and maybe some adjustment. And there's talking of doing the whole thing over and having a whole new format.
I don't think we're going in that direction, but people who were new to this committee, including myself, who looked at the town plan when we realized that we had to change it or update it, I'm sorry. The first and the same comment came from a number of people saying it's verbose, it's long-winded, it's not specific, it's on and on. They use those type of words. And no, I don't think it's something that we need to totally throw away and start new, not at all, but we need to, I think, improve it, revise it.
I would go through your town plan and then if we got to adjust the ordinances to meet it, and look at what are the gray areas, but overall, I think it's generally served us pretty well. You always get the issues as often as not, is it's complicated because it restricts us on what we can do. And there's reasons for being restricted in certain areas, you can't just take your building and put up a building and say, I don't care about my neighbors, I don't care about parking, I don't care about landscaping, and I'm exaggerating, but I mean, those are the things you get into. And, we've designed our plan, and then the ordinance is that you have to meet certain criteria. You can't build too big. You got to follow design criteria to keep us looking reasonable, like the way we picture ourselves. And we like to have a certain amount of landscaping here and there on our properties. Those are the issues you only deal with. And as often as not,
We hope to, through an RFP program, find someone who can advise us about the town plan and maybe have a better starting point than me saying, I don't like the fact that it's verbose and long-winded and not specific, et cetera. Maybe that's not a real issue. The issue is somewhere else. But to get a consultant who does it full-time may help us take a look at it. We need to have some outside eyes look at this thing. And I don't know when the last time outside eyes looked at it. It was,
that never hurts, but you've got a piece of property, what zone are you in? Here's my density. That's always the issue. Here's the density. Loud and clear. And this tells you what I can do. And then now how high can I go up? 30, 35 feet, whatever, and it does become more critical today because construction is so much more expensive. So you try to squeeze as much out of a piece of property as you can, but that has impact. So, and the big thing is housing. Where can we put more housing? And increasing housing density. But over time, we've gone a long way to, let's say, increase our allowance for housing density. Is it enough in certain areas? Well, are we a small town or are we a small city? Are we in an urban area? You look at the character, and that goes back to the town plan.
other comments?
Sorry to be the contrarian, again,
Let's hear.
but I believe we need to start with a town plan. not the ordinance. I think the ordinance, it falls from the town plan.
Correct.
And I think, we talk about parking and density and this sort of stuff, but the town plan's much broader. There's like 12 sections. So I think we start with the town plan. And I'm a little bit more on the left-hand side of the spectrum on how much we change it. I think you're right, it's verbose and long-winded and it's not enough detail. And I think that format has to change. Now, we can, not substantially, but it's got to change. It's going to be easier to read.
I would say we could always have a work session here where we read and go over a chapter and talk about it, and we just all make notes and work on it piece by piece here. I know it's long, that's what's gonna take a while, but we can always do like a small section every meeting.
I don't have a problem with that. Should you do that before you get the consultant in to look at it and
feel like
say,
because
here are
otherwise
my
you're-
suggestions?
It's gonna be more money for the consultant because you have so many pages for them to go over. And there's also the section, the energy section that was recently added, that added a big chunk to it. Now that was already gone over, but we should really make that like more of an appendix that can be referenced online or something rather than being directly just printed out and handed out, as part of the plan.
That was a suggestion made by one of the members here, having appendixes or amendments instead of having it part of the town plan. I totally agree with that. I just wonder when you get the consultant in to say, here's the process that you should go through. Maybe he tells us the process and that's part of what he does, and we start our work on that process and he comes back and in 2 months and says, okay, let's see what you've done. I don't know, but I'd like to at least, we need to do an RFP, we think. And I think it would be nice to talk to somebody and just talk just like we're talking now. How should we start? What should we do first? Maybe he's gonna look at the town plan and say, it's really not that bad. Just polish this and polish that, or he's gonna say, you can do a lot better than that. So,
I'd like to hear what the process that he used in other,
Malta.
yeah, like how
I
did
would
they
too.
do it? And how did they attack it?
Right.
How can we learn from what they did?
I wanna get some input. I don't know when the last time there was outside input on this process.
I think 2017, they had a big charrette. They involved the whole town. They got a lot of input. A lot of that was used in the 2017 rewrite.
I'm referring to professional, not emotional input.
Okay.
It's funny, it wasn't that time we looked on the North Shore business. They had a consultant work with them.
And a lot has changed, right? COVID's changed it. The town has changed it. So we manage the change through our ordinances, right?
Yeah, I obviously I wasn't here, right? So I don't know what I'm talking about, but from what I've read in the 2017 plan, I think at the back, they actually declare that this is mostly based on the 2012 plan.
Yeah.
With the
And
updates.
which was based on the one
Business.
before that.
Right?
For many, many years, they just added, I actually went back and read all the old town plans. And they just added to the plans every year. They never did a fresh rewrite. And that was one of the things we were supposed to be doing many, many years ago before all of you were here. But we never really got going on it. And we kept changing.
It shows that. We need to interrupt that process.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I don't think we want to be additive or subtractive on the current plan.
Yeah.
I think we want to just take a step back, maybe do what Ian suggested and just use this forum to talk about a section.
Mhm.
But I think we need to change the way that we've operated in the past, just based on my reading. Because when you read the 12 plan and the 17 plan, they're like the same.
Yes, they are. And the other thing is.
And I think the select board was actually mandating that we go and redline the sections that we think are problematic for us. That's a good start.
Yeah, I think the redlining, I know that was a suggestion from the select board, but I think you're just going to end up with 180 pages of redline.
Okay.
Is what you're going to do.
You're gonna end up with the same thing.
This is your
We need to
process.
start, we need to kind of just start from scratch with a blank sheet of paper and use the multi-plan and the 17 plan and the 25 plan and the 12 plan, just kind of get our thoughts.
Keep in mind, going back, the plans have to have public input. So going back many years, a lot of those plans, the ideas in them were from people who've lived here many years from the town. And they put what they want to see the town into that idea. So we have to take those core ideas from the plan that exists.
That's a natural when you start, just a second, it's a natural when you start reading it, that you're gonna say, yes, we don't want to be Bennington type thing. But go ahead, Bill.
I want, see if I can put this in the right perspective. Manchester is one of the most desirable and prosperous and successful towns in southern Vermont, and probably can put it right up there in the entire state. And so if it isn't broke, and, you know, Leon said, there hasn't been much change from plan to plan to plan. So, you know, our continuity over the years has contributed to that success, I think. We tweak and you adjust issues as conditions require you to change issues. Again, the Airbnb situation or the telecommunication situation or these changes in how businesses do things. You know, you adjust to that. Our need for housing, you have to adjust to that, okay, those types of things. But the idea that you have to start from scratch and rewrite the whole plan, no. You know, we got it into a heavier than we were in the late 70s and the early 80s when these factory stores started to come into town and proliferate. And we've had to adjust over time. You know, we put in a lot of parking and sizes to kind of temper that whole outlet push, you know, and that's what focused. And over the years, we've adjusted. Okay, we said, gee, we can't keep paving our downtown. So we've kind of relaxed or made more efficient use of our parking. That's where the park and walk and the shared parking concept got broader, and to stop us from paving over everything, you know, just to meet a new building's demands. So you adjust to those things. You know, we've increased density for residential. That's good. Okay. But to have to go rewrite the whole plan, I don't think you're there. I don't think you need to do that. You've got a successful, Germany's successful community. Yeah, there's some pockets here and there of where we need to, yeah, we have to be redeveloped or repurposed in some way. How do we repurpose properties that have outlived their economic usefulness and make sure the plan allows for that? But I don't, and I think we're there. It just gets to be a lot of economics, you know, properties will sell at the right price and people will then repurpose. But when people want too much money for their property or think they're worth a lot more than they really are, they're going to sit for a while, you know?
And I wasn't proposing a complete rewrite. I think it's a new perspective
Yes.
rather than a rewrite.
Always good.
And, you know, I think if we ended up with 180 pages, that's probably not going to fly with the select board or with the town. I believe that, you know, getting input is important, but when we're going through 12, 17, 25 plans, we're going to pick out the pieces that are important to the town. But sorry, one last thing.
I'm sorry.
But those ideas that are in those current plans don't really have any solid, you know, concrete actions or policies or
That's
changes.
to work on.
And that's what we need to work on. So in that sense, it is a bit of not a rewrite, but it's an addition.
Updating.
It's an update, right?
Yeah. Reinvent the wheel, but also we have this $30,000, and in my opinion, we want to find a really good helper to guide us. He might look at the plan and say, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. You got an issue here, and you can improve this and improve this. That's what I think we need outside eyes to look at.
Perspective from the outside is always important. Just don't let it drive you.
You are right. We have a great town. Unfortunately, I kind of think that this town plan's the same as one in Wilmington, the same one as the one in Woodstock, the same as, the one in another town, Ludlow. I'm not sure that's, I think somebody took the easy route there.
From, I don't know, have you started this from every member's perspectives? What are the three most pressing issues that we need to solve as a community?
Housing.
You know, put that down. What does that list give you? And then, okay, how does the town plan address these pressing issues? Is it helping us? Is it restricting us? Okay. If it's a problem, why is it a problem? I mean, is the town plan part of that problem, or are there other issues that are related to that problem? That's what you got to be
It's a
careful.
very analytical, perspective. This is a really good look at what you should do when you're sitting there with the town plan in front of you. These are questions that one has to answer for themselves.
That's how I would approach it, you know?
Very helpful.
And you could say five, each of you, everybody that's involved. What are the five most pressing issues that you think we need to develop to keep our town sustainable and moving forward in the future? And ask the community, the community members can put that down and you through a survey and then sort it out and then say, you know, take all these issues and rank them 1 from 10. And, you know, I'm not sure I'd deal with 19 and 20, but then, okay, what is affecting these problems? What's causing these problems?
We're getting a very educated perspective from a consultant at no price, no cost.
Oh, no, there'll be a cost.
We'll let that one ride.
Hey, Thomas, you've been really quiet whole meeting. Do you have anything to say or add?
No, thank you for asking though.
Do we want to start in the fashion that you talked about, where we take a component and everybody
And we
deals, just a second, a component and everybody deals with that component? Or do we each want to take, like we did before, we're each responsible for one chapter?
See, either way, we're all gonna have to go over, if we do, is, you know, I think we talked about this. If we go over one chapter a piece individually, and then we come back and say, here's what I did, we're still gonna have to sit and go over that as a group. So we might as well just sit and do a chapter as a group and then, you know, make notes and then do another one and, you know.
How do you feel, David?
We'll give it to them.
Happy to give it a go.
That way,
Either, yeah.
I'm not against that.
So we just, you know, we don't do like it all at once. We just, at a meeting, we have like a little, you know, one of the item agendas is we go over a chapter and make notes and then we can move on to other business, you know.
We should review it beforehand though.
Yeah, and make our own little red lines and stuff, but then we
Should
can,
you know, start at the beginning of the town plan?
Yeah.
And do a chapter and then,
and make notes and, you know,
fine with me.
yeah, as a group, because we could all talk about it at the same time.
I like Bill's idea though, to pull out the issues we think are most pressing and start with those, move those to the front of the plan. And then address those in
Yeah.
order of importance.
We also, I did a little outline when we were working on town plan that had a list of, you know, it wasn't quite the groupings we have now. It was a different grouping section. And we can take what she's saying, you know, from that and basically make another outline of how we want to lay it all out
So I
and then
feel-
move
yeah.
pieces around.
Yeah, I feel like we should be working on the really critical issues like housing and economic
Development.
development, the things that we really want.
Parking.
Parking, yes.
So, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think that should be, in my mind, the forefront of our big. But the fact of the matter is that the state requires us to have a certain amount of information and data in every sector. So I don't think we're able to kind of just pick out the things that we think are important. It's not the wrong way to do it, but but there's gonna be sections where we're just gonna have to come back and kind of fill it all in.
Like, cut out things and just, I mean, like, move the order of importance so that we're focusing first on housing, let's say we think that's the most important thing. It's not that we're gonna cut the others out, we're just kind of moving them to the end. And
We just don't want us to lose our energy to that.
Certain areas, some areas will require a lot more time and other areas, you don't ignore them. Say, no, these are okay, we don't spend a lot of time on, but you do look at everything.
Yes, and should we also be working on getting this RFP out though simultaneously?
Have you all had a chance to look at it?
Yes,
to the
it's
template,
very
yeah.
thorough.
I mean, so I think we just need to crystallize what, to Bill's point, what really needs to be looked at in depth.
I have not done my homework on it.
And that's all right. And we could actually, if we pick 3 names, we can get them in here to kind of give us an overview of what they think is important after reading the town plan, right?
I'm not trying to drive what you're doing, I'm just, or how you do it, I just. I'm gonna offer suggestions that help you out.
The good news is we have time. The bad news, we also have the state pushing down legislation that's coming. So we'll need to be flexible on what
That point is,
we could push back.
if we do a lot of work trying to improve this town plan or make it more appropriate for today, are we at risk of getting,
It's always the danger of them writing.
saying, we don't want it done that way?
I don't know. I suspect that we'll have legislation will come around. But I think
I think
where are we even going to?
running in the direction that the state wants us to run is concentrating activity in your town centers, I forget all the terms they use.
The next big thing is the stuff that was gonna make us not have to go through Act 250, like a tier 1A or tier 1. So those are the next things that'll
We
come.
would apply for that when it comes up. So
Right.
I think that we can put that in a town plan.
Yes.
That's new.
Right.
One of the things we have in the RFP is we have a request, we have a kickoff meeting where the person attends with the planning commission and we discuss issues that are most important. So like Caroline said, we should put those issues, forward to them.
What is the deadline for using the $30,000 grant?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. My suspicion. Beg pardon?
2027.
Oh, okay, so we have some time.
We do have time, yes.
Yeah, my proposal will be to identify three people and ask them to read the plan and come to this meeting one at a time and have them give us their opinion on the plan, what they think we should do, how they might help us, how many hours that might take, what the rate is. Like, let's use their sales cycle to gather more information.
Correct.
Okay, so we just need to, I think we need to identify the 3 people and we need to come up with a list of 20 questions to ask them. Which is basically,
I know one person.
which is basically the same way we treat Bill as a free consultant. It's a free consultant.
What were you saying?
I said, I know one person we could probably ask, and I was pointing to Bill.
Warren
I get it.
stuff. and
Yeah, that's a great idea. I like the more information.
Brattleboro.
Right, I was like, what's it like to work? How do they work with us, Sorry, Bill.
Here's an example of where your town plan
What's the name?
tells you how you're gonna react, okay? I hear there's been some conversation or there's been talking or people are raising questions. Why can't we put more commercial activity, I'm gonna say east of the Route 7 interchange going up towards the mountain, which is now strictly limited to restaurants, okay? Your town plan tells you why you can and can't do it, and then the zoning fits into that, And there's very good historical reason why we said you can't develop around that interchange, okay? And we made some slight exceptions on the west side of the interchange for existing buildings. But that's what your town plan addresses. And because we haven't done that, and I say we don't change that, that's why downtown remains vibrant. Now, people argue, well, you know, it's the traffic going up to the mountain and that's the,
The buildings that are there are grandfathered in, but we can't develop more in that area.
Perfect scenario, question, and hopefully answer. That's a great example.
Yeah, when you come off Route 7 going up.
that's what your town plan addresses, you know?
Going up the mountain, up.
I'll ask just Googled a name that did the award-winning Berlin town plan. What?
Yeah, I also dug a little bit deeper and he also did our previous one.
Okay, so there you have it. Who took the Malta one? Malta? Yeah, that was done by Mike Allen, I think.
Can you make a
Mike.
recommendation as to specifically?
Maybe BCRC.
I
Read it.
This guy, because we were at the VLCT.
CERN?
meeting, They said like an award-winning town plan in Vermont was Lynn's. Googled it and who did it. And he did stuff in
David,
Dairy.
Brattleboro, Londonderry, Dorset, Rutland, Middlebury, like Shelburne,
Right.
every, yeah, Chester. So
Who was that, Elias?
it was the person who did our prior town plan, I guess, and worked with Janet. Yeah, 2017. And the one, we were at a VLCT training a while ago and they said Brattleboro is like an award-winning town, or Berlin, sorry, is an award-winning town.
which town is
Berlin.
Then, oh,
Vermont. So I just,
Berlin, Vermont?
yeah, so I just looked up who did it and I got the name of the consultant that worked on it. I don't know. They have a bunch of work throughout Vermont, so maybe we'll reach out to them.
how long is it till?
What?
How long is the?
The Berlin town plan was 34 pages.
It's only because there are only 14 people in Berlin.
Right, it's a very small town.
Size,
We done with the town plan discussion?
I think so. I mean, that's,
So
we're done when you're done.
can we just agree with the action items are?
Sure.
Yes.
I think our vice chair was going to put a short one pager as to the action items to start based on his thinking and what you were just contributing.
Plus, we're gonna reach out to 3 consultants. And we need to develop a set of questions that we want to ask them.
If you sent that around, then everybody could make a little changes to add additions to it.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Excellent.
Is there a timing on that, Leon? Because I know you're
I
busy.
already kind of had it printed out, so I can just add each to it.
Isn't that cheating?
I already had it done.
Yeah, that's-
We were doing a town plan, so, yeah.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
We've got to talk about our next meeting, what our schedule
Okay,
is.
we have any other open discussion of PC members on here?
No.
For me.
We have a difficult issue we have to address. Well, the planning commission and zoning office has been instructed by the town manager that we're supposed to be taking our own minutes. Is that correct?
Well, the planning commission has always done that in the past.
And we're, I guess, expected to or
We've
advised.
always
to?
taken our own minutes.
Say it again.
We've always taken our own minutes.
We did it up until Chris left.
Is that
mean-
true, Bill?
yeah, but remember what your minutes have to legally include isn't all that demanding.
I thought it was just motions.
Yeah, the actions that you take.
Right.
You don't have to,
Motion,
your minutes don't need to reflect
the discussion,
all your discussions.
right?
You know, it's not that onerous for somebody, staff or somebody who got a relatively good memory that's secretary of the.
Actually, Janet always took minutes, like the major part of the minutes, kind of like Elias's one. But we, if there was something we were doing, changing, I would see, can't remember her name, she used to write everything down, keep track of it, but it wasn't anything major. And usually it would coincide with whatever Janet was keeping track of as well.
So would the minutes be basically incorporating the agenda and some action items, after the agenda.
You could say discussion took place over this and this, if there's one or two principles, but
We need to have a volunteer who could do that. Is there anybody that would volunteer to do that?
rotate.
You said no.
Yeah, I know.
All righty, we'll,
Typically, in the past, I hate to point the fingers, but staff used to do that.
That's when your staff would do it.
Is the issue from the town manager that our minutes are too extensive, too long? Can we just like ask you to do an
Well, I-
version, or is it just a thing he doesn't want us to do anymore?
No, I'll be honest with you. So Chris was taking the minutes up until he left, right?
What was that?
My first 5 months of employment. So, and then,
Just when?
Sorry, November 2023, October 2023 is when I got hired. Yeah, so, and then I kind of got saddled with doing them. So I've been doing,
March 24, you start getting silent with the minutes.
yeah, so I've been doing them
Too
in
efficient and too thorough.
the interim.
And in the interim, and
And it's,
more than we need.
my priority is zoning, so that's what I was hired for. So if,
I'm gonna make not a motion, I'm gonna, go talk to Scott and come up with another, solution to this issue, okay? So we can dodge the bullet.
It sounds like the minutes that you're producing
Mhm.
are too thorough for what we
Yes.
actually need.
Exactly.
okay.
Any other issues tonight?
Do we need to-
Rushing here?
Do we need to go, so a couple of things. One, do we need to go back and approve the minutes from the May 13th? Don't
We
do
did,
that?
we
Okay.
did that already.
And do we have a discussion on our
Next
next
meeting.
meeting and the plan and our calendar for the rest of the year? Because I know Thomas raised it and I seconded that. That I'd like to get something more in the calendar that's every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks or whatever you want to do.
It's a function of whether people are available.
Well, I think it's okay to calendar it and have some expectation. And
I
if
think-
people can't make it, then we can decide.
I would
to-
like to propose that our next meeting is on the 23rd, Monday, the 23rd of June. And I would support hoping that we could get meetings every 2 weeks. I think that's what we need. Maybe it's gonna be, you know, but yes, getting it on a schedule would be beneficial.
Is it essential to have it every 2 weeks?
Is it?
I'm posing that.
I thought that we were required to do it kind of twice a month.
Okay.
Or every 2 weeks.
Is that true?
Used to do it once a month.
Once a month, is it?
Once a month seems good.
Any thoughts, Leon? Did the planning commission?
You got what to do.
And you move it, yes, like,
I didn't hear what you said, Peter. What you,
Was it your experience that the planning commission met bi-monthly?
usually once a month, yeah.
Once a month?
Yeah, it's the first Monday of every month.
Does everyone feel that that's adequate, or do you feel like?
I think we can add, we should do a minimum of once a month, and then if we're working on something, we could add.
Or if we have a lot of things that are pressing, something in the community that happens that we need to address.
All righty, so do you want to have a motion that we move to a once a month? And we start our next meeting on the 23rd.
Sure, I move that we move our meeting to once a month, and that the next meeting is, thank you for putting that to me, June 23rd. Why are we doing it 1 month away?
That's the first time, some people take long vacations.
Excellent, I support that, easier. That's good.
You guys can meet whenever you want.
I looked at the calendar and plugged in everybody's, when I had asked people when they were available, plugged it all in, and the next time is Monday, the 23rd of June. Then everybody's available, okay?
Of May.
June. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Wait, can we do 24th of June?
That's a Tuesday. No, we can't.
Okay.
Well, no, because this room is taken.
Oh, it has to be on a Monday?
Yeah, it's a problem for you?
Yeah, I have an appointment at
Maybe-
2:45, so I don't think I can make it back. in
An
time.
hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes to start with.
Right.
So do you want to switch it to Wednesday, the 25th?
Yes. David, can you make the 25th?
Yes.
Okay, change your motion?
25th? Perfect, thank you.
So we've got a motion to change to, next meeting's the 25th and thereafter it's monthly, hopefully Monday nights, right?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. And now we're gonna have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded,
Second it.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so June 20.
See you, Thomas.
Thank you.